And welcome back to another episode of LSU Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. Of course, I'm Grant Sasher, joined here by Zach Junda. We're the two co-hosts right here on the LSU version of the Voice of College Football. Voice of College Football. And Zach, great weekend last weekend. Of course, the dogs are barking. They're excited that we're back. How was your Mother's Day weekend?
It was good. Took my mom to the Sunday game. I mean, I wish the result would have been better, but you weren't playing for. I'd say you weren't playing for much, but you took care of business already. So it was kind of like a stress theory. If you win, great. If not, that's okay too.
Yeah, definitely. Very huge series win for LSU over Arkansas. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to discuss the news that came out today with LSU and SMU playing each other in a home and away series for I believe it was the years 2028 and 2029. I know one of the years is 2028, but I think if I'm right, 28, 29.
Yeah, 28, 29.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to discuss a little bit more about the Nuss bus hype. Of course, as we get closer to the season, the expectation for Nuss just keep on building and building and building. Of course, it's the second year for him. We've already seen quarterbacks at LSU get better in their second year. Of course, and the second year as a full-time starter. Perfect examples: Jamarcus Russell, Zach Mettenberger, Joe Burrow, and of course, Jane Daniels. Will we say the same about Garrett Nussbauer? Well, it seems like a lot of people agree to that. But before we break down everything, let's hear what the boss man, Mark Rogers, has to say about one of the newest promotions that we're doing over here at the Voice of College Football Network.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
And we're back. And Zach, of course, big series win for LSU over Arkansas. And before I get to that,
wow,
bald. Yeah, I shaved, bro. I shaved my head. That's what I did. Exactly what I did. Yeah, same reaction to everybody else. I was like, it's like, oh, you shaved? It's like, yeah, I did. It was time. I got the shower. I'm like, yeah, I think it's time. Or like, yeah, it's not time yet, but we're getting closer and closer. And I kind of look like the caramel Josh Pate right now. So very excited about this new phase of my life. I've joined the ball game, I guess you could say.
You're coming home, as they say.
Yeah. Coming home. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm better than a lot of people. A lot of people won't want to accept it, but I did. So there's that. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna
say? Tiger Woods chief among them.
Oh yeah.
Biggest offender of the needs to come home camp, but won't. So
LeBron. LeBron's another example.
Yeah.
Some people don't have money to get hair transplants in Turkey, okay? So gotta do this instead. And it's free. I did it for free. So, but anyway, going back to LSU baseball, of course, LSU picked up a huge series win over Arkansas. LSU was the number 3 team in the country, of course, and Arkansas was number 6. Arkansas, has been a relatively hot team going to the series. This is probably by far the best team that LSU's probably played at home outside. Of course, LSU is very good too. But before this series, remember, LSU had lost 8 of the last 11 meetings against Arkansas. So it's a lot of times, when LSU goes against Arkansas unless you have a very elite team, a very complete team, it's hard to beat Arkansas because Arkansas is always complete. They've always have a complete team, and LSU did its job. They not only did they pitch the ball well, as we all thought they were going to do, because our starting Anthony Ianson and Cade Anderson have been awesome, right? They're arguably the best 1-2 punch the LSU's had in a while. I mean, I know that Paul Skeens and Ty Floyd were great. I know last year we had Gage Jump and Andrew Holman. They're great as well. But I think both these guys are – I think I'd say 1-2 duo, a 1-2 unit. They're better than the other two because it was just Paul Skeens and then Ty Floyd, had it, it depended on what type of Ty Floyd we saw in last year. They're great too. But I think I still think that Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson were better than Holman and Jump were last year. And, of course, let's talk about the first game. LSU won 5-4 on a walk-off sack fly. I believe it was from Ethan Fry, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
It was Ethan Fry, yeah. So I don't have the play in front of me right now, but it's loading. So that ended up winning the game. And ironically, it happened at the same time that Jared Jones hit his walk-off homer against Tennessee. LSU just might as well play 1 o'clock games in game one from here on out.
Yeah.
1 o'clock at night, by the way. Want to rephrase it. 1 o'clock at night, not 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 1 o'clock at night.
Yeah. As Jay said, they're the best team at 1 a.m. in the country. So if the College World Series, if all 3 games, first pitch is about 11:59 p.m., hammer LSU money line. Just going to get in front of that right now.
Yeah, definitely. In the game one, of course, it was another come from behind win for LSU. Of course, Arkansas took an early lead. Let me get the scoring stats right here. So LSU got off to a lead, right? Jared Jones hit an RBI single in the bottom of the third that took a 1-0 lead. But then Arkansas was able to tie it up with a Cam Gazile homer to left center. Then LSU got the lead again with Ethan Fry homered over the right center field wall. LSU led 2-1 on the bottom of the fourth. However, Arkansas would score they would score 1 run each in the next 3 innings. In the top of the fifth, Charlie Davalon flew out to center field, but was able to get the sac fly RBI. Then in the 6th inning, Kuyo Haloy homered to left field on a solo bomb. Then his brother Wavia Haloy grounded out to third base, but it was an RBI ground out. So Arkansas was able to take a 4-2 lead in midway through the 7th inning. However, Derek Curiel, who's been clutch all year, had a 2 RBI single through the left side of the field in the bottom of the 7th. And then LSU's bullpen did his job, and they're able to force extra innings. And, of course, Ethan Fry flew out to center field. He had it was a sac fly RBI, as I mentioned. I kind of alluded to before we got into the play-by-play breakdown. But if you look at the comparison, LSU did a great job hitting the ball. Although they only got 9 hits, they batted .257 from behind the plate, which is much better. And check this out, too, Zach. With runners on third with less than 2 outs, LSU batted 3 for 4. So when you had a runner on third base, LSU batted 3 for 4. That's a massive improvement because LSU, for one, couldn't hit. And not only could they not hit, they can hit when you're in the best opportunities to bring people home, and that's exactly what they did. Timely hitting. It's not about just hitting the ball, but it's also about timely hitting. You could have 6 hits in one game, but if 3 of those 6 hits were responsible for, let's say that it was a 6-2 ball game, they were responsible for 4 of your 6 runs, that's a pretty good day behind the plate, even if you struggle certain times during the game. But it's about the opportunities that are given to you, Zach. And, of course, I also want to mention Cade Anderson did relatively well, pitched 5.2 innings at 10 strikeouts, so another 10-plus strikeout game for him. He allowed 3 runs on 7 hits, and so he did relatively fine. It's the Arkansas is a very good hitting team. They're one of the best in the SEC. But then Chase Shores and Chase Shores came out of the bullpen, did a nice job for an inning, and then Zach Cowan, of course, one of the best closers in college baseball right now, which is crazy because he was an ace. He was the ace for Wofford last year, which was one of the better mid-majors around the country. Of course, he closed up the game, had 3 strikeouts. He allowed 2 hits, but allowed no runs, and he had 3 strikeouts. What a day for LSU. It was really a complete game. Despite the low scoring output, it was a complete game for LSU, in my opinion.
Yeah, and especially for like you said earlier, Arkansas is probably the best team LSU's played all season, regardless of venue. I remember even saying on this here show that
keep going. The dogs are happy. The dogs are happy that we beat Arkansas, man.
Just with how big the Tennessee and Arkansas series were, I remember saying on this show, like, hey, those are 6 massive games. If you go 3-3, I'll take that. And LSU ended up going 4-2 and probably could have gone 5-1. So LSU's in a really good spot. The Friday game, we can all kind of breathe a sigh of relief. It looks like Cade Anderson got pulled a little early because of it looks like a wrist thing, or he was kind of flexing his wrist, but it looks like he got an IV. So it doesn't seem like it's an elbow or an actual energy thing or injury, excuse me. He just seemed to be cramping up. So we look like we're in the clear for South Carolina and beyond, because if Anderson's not healthy, we can pretty much just stop talking about LSU baseball right now because they're not going to go anywhere. But it looks like we dodged that bullet, thankfully.
Yeah, of course. And, just another outstanding game from Cade Anderson. And at times it was shaky, but that's kind of expected when you go up against the batting lineup, the Arkansas batting lineup, like it's I actually described in the pregame show, preview show. I'm trying to find where I had my stats and everything. It was kind of a couple pages back. Here we go. So, there was like 5 or 6 batters on Arkansas that had that batted 300 or over, and I think 5 or 6 of them had 10+ home runs. And so you were able to limit their bats. And actually, if I remember correctly, Taloy only had 2 or 3 hits throughout the entire series. He's Arkansas's best batter. I mean, he leads the Hogs in batting average of 376, which is 4th in the SEC, by the way. Had a 718 slugging percentage. He leads Arkansas in on-base percentage 464, and he had 77 hits, also a team high, 16 doubles, I believe is also a team high, 17 home runs, also a team high. So he's their best batter, and LSU slowed him down. Now, of course, they had a little bit. Now, Lloyd, he had some decent nights in the series, but LSU has done a great job all year slowing down Arkansas's best bats, and that was really evident in the next game. LSU was able to rule Arkansas 13-3, which ended up being the series deciding game. A resounding 13-3 victory over Arkansas. You don't really get those type of victories over Arkansas often, so it just shows you how dominant they were. And of course, you have to talk about Anthony Ianson. He pitched 6 shutout innings, allowed 5 hits, only lost 1 batter, and had 11 strikeouts. Between the Lloyd brothers, 1 for 8. Kuyo Haloy was the one that got the hit. And then, of course, LSU, Jake Brown, great game. 3 for 4 from behind the plate with 5 RBIs and 2 home runs on the day. What a fantastic outing from behind the plate. Of course, you have to talk about Ethan Fry. Once again, had another ascending performance in game 2. 2 for 3 with 4 RBIs and a home run. Cade Arambide, catcher. By the way, the catchers have been coming through nicely from behind the plate. Cameron Arambide, 3 for 4 from behind the plate with an RBI and a solo shot. So you had 3 different batters have home runs, and Jake Brown, of course, had a 2 home run game. So just a great overall performance from LSU. You didn't really have to use your bullpen as much. If you look at who came out of the bullpen, like I said, Anthony Ianson had 6 scoreless innings, But then Maverick Grizzly and DJ Primo both recorded 0.0 innings, but that's because they all went in like the same inning, I guess. And the game went to 7 innings. So Maverick Grizzly, DJ Primo kind of did situational stuff in an inning. And then, of course, Jay Newt finished it out. He pitched a whole inning and had 1 strikeout. But, a complete game for LSU. Like I said, you don't get to run rule a great program like Arkansas. It doesn't happen often. And that just kind of capitulates the whole series in general. Like, you needed LSU to not only pitch well, and you kind of expected them to pitch well, but they needed to be more aggressive behind the plate, and that's exactly what LSU did this series.
Yeah, I was hoping that Ianson could have finished the game out, especially with that run rule effect being in sight or being in play. I can understand pulling him, though, especially since this weekend against Carolina, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, so that means Ianson's going to be working on short rest. So I can understand pulling him out of the game since he'd be on short rest. But I don't know. If it was me personally, I would have let him ride it out. Especially he was only at like 90-ish pitches. We've seen him go 100 and beyond a couple times this season. And I think it would have been cool seeing him go back-to-back complete games. I was really disappointed in the bullpen, honestly, with Rizzi and Primo combining to get 0 outs and having to even have played that bottom of the 7th inning. But it all worked out because we get a walk-off called third strike. So that's 3D chess by Jay Johnson. He knew what he was going to call the called third strike play, and he wanted to have that ready to go. So great job by him giving back 3 runs just to get 1 hilarious run at the end.
Yeah, of course, Zach. And I'm actually looking at some of the batting stats. I mean, LSU put a number on Arkansas's bats. I mean, some of the better bats, like Charles Avalon and Cam Gozil, I mean, they shut them down for the most part. I'm actually looking at it. I mean, they did a great job shutting down Arkansas's bats. Even the bullpen at times. I mean, I know people have criticism about the bullpen, although I do think has been improving. The one area where LSU's really been struggling at is behind the plate. Like I said, we've criticized Stephen Milam, and it was like because obviously we like Stephen Milam. We still think he's a great player, especially defensively. And it's gotten so bad from behind the plate that even LSU fans are like blaming Chris Stanfield because he's not hitting the ball well, even though he's leading LSU in batting average in SEC play. I think he's batting like .313 right now in conference play. I gotta double check that, but overall he's been batting over 300 throughout the entire year, and also is batting. So right now for the year, Chris Stanfield is batting .321. In SEC play, it's actually gotten better, .330 throughout SEC play. So he's been one of your more consistent hitters, and also is second on the team in SEC play in on-base percentage with .410. So he's been doing a great job, not only hitting the ball, but also has really struggled for the most part hitting the ball. And when I talk about aggressive hitting, like I said this in the previous show on Go Time, and I said one of the things that LSU had to do was be aggressive, have aggressive at bats. Of course, LSU batted .355 from behind the plate in game 2, which is 11 for 31. Guess what? In the leadoff, in 7 innings, 6 for 7. They went 6 for 7 on their leadoff hitters.
Oh my God!
Like I don't think you realize how crazy that is. What?
Sorry, I've got the draft lottery on in the background. Guess who got the number 1 pick, Grant?
Who?
The Mavs.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
I know the voice of college football, we're a football show, but that's why I was just reacting like that. Tell me the NBA is not rigged.
So they just got another white dude. Another big time white dude. Oh God. Okay, but going back to LSU baseball, we're keeping that in the clip. But anyway, but go back to what I was saying. But yeah, LSU went 6 for 7. So because there's only 7 innings played. There's only 1 inning where a batter got retired.
Yeah.
That's insanely good. And that shows you that's aggressiveness right there. If you're able to, if only 1 batter throughout 7 innings got retired, that's a great day to be on the plate. And also, I also want to mention too, with runners scoring position for 12, not so bad, but ain't great either. But runners on third with less than 2 outs, 2 for 4, so you're able to convert on 2 of your 4 at bats with runners on third base. And then runner. So yeah, they did an overall great job behind the plate. And yeah, just a great weekend. I don't think we're gonna even talk about Game 3 unless you want to talk about Zach.
It got away from them. I mean, Case and Evan, they gave a 4 spot in the 3rd inning or 4th inning, whatever it was, but Evans had them down to 2 outs. You know, you're just 1 out away from getting out of this thing, either tied or still leading. It's a little disappointing, and kind of the same theme as the Saturday night game where you just needed to close the door and just not give up a run. Well, you go into the 9th inning, you're down 5-4, and then LSU ends up using 4 pitchers in the 9th inning because they can't throw strikes. William Schmidt walks the only 2 guys that he faces. Rizzi gave up a little bit of something. I don't know, but you know, what's the objective every weekend? Win 2 out of 3. You won 2 out of 3. It would have been nice to sweep maybe the best team in the country, but that's really selfish to ask for, I guess. But I'm not gonna lie, when Hernandez and Milam went, I don't remember if it was back-to-back or home run out, then home run to go up 2-0. I started to think like, man, a sweep with 18 SEC wins going to Carolina. This is breaking really nice for LSU. Maybe you can win the regular season SEC title. Maybe you can get the number 1 overall seed, but wasn't meant to be. But you still took care of business, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. You know, the great series win for LSU. It's a very important one, of course. Right now, actually, with the series win, guess who is the number 1 team in the country, Zach? Guess who it is, Zach?
Southeastern.
I'm pretty sure everyone in Hammond, America would like to think that. And no, it's UL Lafayette.
Oh, okay, cool. Good for Cajun. Good
for they became the number 1 team in the country despite getting swept by Southern Miss. Now, I'm joking, y'all. I'm absolutely joking. Okay, hold on, Mom. I'll call you back later. But I'm trying. I'll go. So, yeah, that's what happens. I hate that sometimes where people call. Here we go. Bang! It's your LSU Fighting Tigers, baby.
Wow.
Everyone. D1 Baseball, Baseball America, Perfect Game, USA Today Sports, and the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association.
Wow.
Everyone. It's a full sweep. Number 1 team in the country. And so for that, thank you. Who did Arkansas, Texas lose to this week? It was somebody.
Lost to Florida.
So thank you, Florida. I know we're rivals. Thank you so much. Sip on a Coke and have a blessed rest of the week. Thank you so much. The number LSU, your Fighting Tigers, the number 1 team in the country. Although, are we the number 1 team in the country? Do you even want it?
Do we really believe that? I don't. I love LSU as much as anybody, but I don't.
I'll say this. We're like, if we had won against A&M last week, because Kendall Rogers even admitted this last week. If LSU had not blown the lead in Game 3, Kendall Rogers would have put LSU's number 1 team. Because remember, Texas got swept by I think it was somebody. They got swept by somebody. Oh, it's Arkansas. So everyone was getting ready to put LSU's number 1 team last week, but then they blew Game 3. And then now with the win over Arkansas, who is one of the more respected programs in the country, of course, and how you did it, they're the number 1 team, and of course the number 1 and number 2 teams both lost the series last week. So you're the number 1 team in the country. So you best believe it. And of course, maybe you hope that Paul Maneri and South Carolina pull off the upset. So if you're superstitious, of course, because there's a whole number 1 team curse going around. But if you're superstitious, you're gonna hope that South Carolina kind of wins the series next week. Although I don't think that at all. I think sometimes, I don't know. It's a what's it called? It's a mind screw, right? Like that's what it is. You think there's a curse, there's nothing there, but you believe in it so much that it screws through your head, and then you choke, right? But I mean, I guess it's up to you if you want to believe it or not. I don't. It doesn't matter. Your LSU Flying Tigers are the number one team in the country in baseball, and that's how it should be.
And for what it's worth, LSU is like 7th or 8th in RPI, and that's probably a more fair assessment of where this team is.
But RPI is based off of like the team's wins. Like there's a lot of things that go into RPI. It's not an actual like ranking, right, per se. But it's about your strength of schedule, who you've done it against, what your opponent's win-loss record. Like it's more about computer stuff than anything else. It's more But also LSU, although they have been kind of up and down, if you look at this LSU team, like, yes, they have been struggling behind the plate, but if you look at who they've beaten, I mean, they have one of the best resumes in the country, Zach. And the pitching staff has gotten better over time. You got to hope the hitting kind of comes through eventually. You need more consistent hitting. But the 2 of the last 3 weeks, you've been Tennessee and you've been Arkansas. So, I think that is a fair assessment. But really, RPI is great for where you stand in terms of your national seeding. If you're 1 through 8, not only you host a regional, you host a super regional. I think RPI is great for that. I see where you're at and everything else in terms of host. But for an actual ranking, I don't necessarily have to go RPI. I think you go off RPI in terms of where you're seeding at. That's what RPI is good for, and that's why it's very important to stay in the top 8 in the RPI, because that's what determines if you host a regional or not, or host a super regional along with the regional. If you finish like 9 through 16, host a regional. 1 through 8, you get to host the regional and the super regional. But we're going to move on from baseball. That's a full series recap. Now let's talk about an interesting development that happened today, and something that was kind of a large topic of discussion. I know we talk about baseball a lot, and of course that's the main discussion too. But it was a really intriguing when it popped up. But LSU will have a home away series against SMU. We've seen LSU do more and more home and away series. Of course, we got the Clemson home away series coming up for the next few years, this year and then next year, 2025, 2026. And then you have SMU for the years 2028 and 2029. Zach, of course, SMU, for any of you guys who don't know, is in Dallas, Texas. Of course, Texas.
Traditional ACC power.
The new ACC power, but on the verge of becoming they're a traditional Southwest Conference power.
Yeah.
If you want to go there.
Yep.
Because I'm a college football sicko. They used to be in the now defunct Southwestern Conference, along with Texas and all of them. And of course, but they're a playoff team now, right? They made the playoff last year. Of course, they nearly won the SEC championship, although it took like a 55-yarder from Clemson's kicker for Clemson to even win that game. They're now a playoff team. SMU was one of the teams that has benefited from NIL, and it looks like
Yes, they have. What
we all know that. You know the history of SMU. If you know anything about it, you know that they're the original. They're the OGs of the NIL. And but Zach, that could be a competitive series. SMU just made the playoff, and we know that they benefit a lot from NIL. Matter of fact, they actually took one of our recruits. They took Ja'Kai Anderson he was New Orleans board, committed to LSU. He committed from LSU to SMU, and I talked about that in the video. It's already posted on our channel. Go check it out and actually play. And I really think he made the right choice in hindsight because LSU is loaded in their class of 26 in terms of receivers. And not only that, you go to SMU and you're the second highest overall recruit there. And SMU has a decent recruiting class, by the way. So that's not, they have the 23rd, they're the 23rd recruiting class in the country. So they have a decent recruiting class. But of course, he will benefit from being the second overall recruit because that means more NIL money for him. And also, I talked about Jack Besh's time at LSU and why going away from LSU to TCU was great for his career. He got drafted in the second round. But moving past that, SMU, LSU, what do you like about that new development that we're going to have a home away series with SMU?
Also, as a reminder, if you guys forgot, here's to put in perspective how much money SMU's got. SMU bought their way to the ACC, and they're like, look, you don't got to worry about giving us TV money. We're good. We just want to be in the ACC that badly. You guys are going to pay us. So to just pass on 10 years worth of revenue share for TV money, that's how loaded they are. This is great. I couldn't help but notice, though, that the release just said that it's 2028 is going to be in Baton Rouge and 2029 is going to be in Dallas, which makes me think that this may not be a true home and home, because Ford Stadium has like 32,000 seating capacity. So I'm expecting that this game played ends up being either at AT&T Stadium, which gross, or fingers crossed, the Cotton Bowl. If it's not going to truly be on SMU's campus, I'd rather it be in the Cotton Bowl than the soulless NFL stadium thing. Again, we've seen that plenty of times. But this is great. I want LSU to play these more true home and home games. I've got shout out Tiger Dropping. Someone had has future non-conference games. 2029, if this still holds, LSU has SMU, Arizona State, Rice, and McNeese for 2029. 2030, they have the return trip to Arizona State, and 2031 and 32 is the Utah home and home series. So the back end of the decade. There you go. Thank you, Grant. The back end of the decade and the early 2030s. There's some pretty tantalizing games up there, and again, true home and homes. What a novel concept. Play these games on campus.
Yeah.
I've been saying for years that Utah series in 31, that I'm going to that game. I'm just going to let everybody know right now on May 12, 2025, I'm going to be at Utah that day. I'm going to that game. It's never a bad idea to play in Dallas. Never a bad idea to extend your geographical footprint. I mean, it's silly to like project what the game is going to look like 3 years ahead of now. I mean, who knows who's on this roster with all the turnover and the way things are, but this is good. I want LSU to play more of these games. And, you know, SMU, they made the playoff. You didn't. So, you know, keep playing these games. Challenge these games. And like we had said last week, I like that LSU isn't running away from these big home and home series, these neutral site games. You got to win them, but you know, keep playing these games.
Yeah, of course, Zach, and you know, I appreciate the fact that we're going back to home and away series once again. I got tired of the neutral site games, and yes, they're cool in the aspect of you're playing in an NFL stadium, and of course that would drive tourism to certain cities. I mean, it was great that we had the LSU Florida State game at the Superdome. It did drive up tourism here in New Orleans, but at the same time, like, you know, I was a student at the time, and I wish that game was in Baton Rouge. I really do. I really that would have been a great environment. You know, when's the last time you had a big game, not big non-conference game at Tiger Stadium like that? I mean, you would probably have to go back to 2007 when Virginia Tech came into town. That was a top 10 matchup between LSU and Virginia Tech. I think that was the last time you had that type of matchup at Tiger Stadium. Otherwise, it's been in Dallas. It's been in Houston.
Yeah.
It's been in Houston. It's been in Dallas. It's been in Houston. It's been in Florida, like Tampa and Orlando. I mean, it's about time that we've had a home and away series against big.
We had Syracuse in 16 and 17 or 15 and 16.
But Syracuse is bad.
But
the Syracuse is not a top 10 matchup, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not. I mean, Syracuse is not like even now. Florida State wasn't a top 25 team at the moment. Of course, we know they became that as the season went on. But the top, like Florida State, Syracuse, like the Florida State's a bigger brand than Syracuse, right?
And,
I mean, you know what I'm saying? That you haven't had a brand team coming to Tigers, a non-conference brand team coming to Tiger Stadium, and of course, we're going to have Clemson in 2026. That should be a great matchup. Then we got Houston going to Houston in 2027. But then if you look at SMU could, if everything worked, if they could keep continuing this, the progress. I mean, like I said, they made the playoff last year. Not only that, you have Arizona State, right? You have Arizona State coming to town. So who knows what Arizona State could look like? Because I don't know how much longer Kenny Dillingham's going to be there. I know he's from the Phoenix area. I know he's went to ASU. He's an alum. But then again, money talks, and Kenny Dillingham right now is one of the hottest young coaches in the country. Yeah. And does Arizona State have now? They probably do have a lot of resources, but do they have the resources all together? Because like LSU had the resources, but it never really came together until recently, right? And that's shocking because of how much athletic success LSU's had in almost every single sport. But like I said, it's great that we have these home and away series now, especially against other big-time non-conference opponents. Like Clemson is the one coming up. Of course, we got SMU coming up in 2028, 2029, Arizona State 2029 and 2030, and then Utah in 2031, 2032. And, of course, Utah has been one of the more consistent college football programs in the country. I know last year they had a down year, but, again, it's Utah. They've been consistent. They were consistent. They've been consistent since the early 90s. They were always a solid mid-major program, and since they've become a Power 4 program, they've been a really nice program. They've been very consistent. So I'm really liking, once again, I'm really like the fact we're going back to home and away series, and hopefully that SMU is a great program by the time we play them in 2028, 2029, because that'll be a lot of fun. And, of course, LSU's going to be going to Dallas. I don't know what they're going to do with the game in Dallas because if you remember, SMU has a small stadium. They have a 33,000 seat stadium. So it's a small stadium. I wonder if they're going to move the game to either the Cotton Bowl or they're going to move it to Jerry World, right? Because I'm pretty sure SMU wants to make money. I'm thinking LSU has a large alumni base in Dallas. It's only about a 3-hour drive from Houston. It's a 3-hour drive from Shreveport. So you're going to have a lot of LSU fans there. And you're also going to have a sizable amount of SMU fans there because, once again, it's going to be Dallas. It's going to be about 30,000, 40,000 SMU fans there.
I'm also kind of wondering, looking at what you've got on the screen, there's probably going to be schedule changes, like SEC game schedule changes, hopefully going to a 9-game schedule. So, I'm looking at that 29 slate, SMU, Arizona State, Rice, McNeese. If you go to 9 conference games, I'm wondering – who you axed from there? I mean,
McNeese.
Probably McNeese.
McNeese. Yeah.
Of course, and maybe the SEC keeps 8 games, and this all ends up being moot. But I feel like 9 conference games is on the horizon, which they probably need to start playing 9 games anyway. Yeah. I'm also no, I lost my point. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're fine. But yeah, like you said, Zach, I mean, who knows what's years on out. We don't know if the SEC is going to go to 9 SEC games or going to keep 8. We don't know if SMU is going to be a playoff contender like they were last year. And I think they're bringing back a lot of people and they have a large NIL collective. So hopefully it can stay competitive. You also wish that, those games down the line, like Arizona State and Utah, maybe they're able to keep their continue their success in football as well. Of course, Arizona State was literally almost sack away from moving on to the semifinals. They should have beat Texas too. They should have beat Texas. Yeah, and then of course Utah has been one of the more consistent programs in college football for the last 25 to 30 years. But anyway, let's move on. Zach, we've talked about this, and this is kind of an old discussion, but we always talk about Gary Nussmeier, his jump from year 1 to year 2. But Zach, do you think that Gary Nussmeier is the number 1 quarterback in the country coming back?
If he's not, there's maybe I can count on one hand number of guys that I might take over him, but I would pick him. I'm not sold on. I still don't get the whole Drew Aller thing. I would like to see Arch Manning, I don't know, start a couple games before I anoint Arch Manning. Then we're down to Lenore Sellers and Cade Klubnik, and Nuss is going to go up against both of these guys this season. So this race for like the arbitrary best QB in the country and QB1 next April's draft, that's going to be settled on the field between Nuss and the two South Carolina schools. I think he's as good as anybody. I know, probably wearing purple and gold glasses, but like the throw he made to Aaron Anderson to win the Ole Miss game, or not to win the Ole Miss game, but to send to overtime, that's as good as throws. I don't know if anyone else can make that throw on fourth down, especially that dot that he throws. He's got probably the best supporting cast in the country, at least from a skill position standpoint. Offensive line, we've talked about a bunch this year. It's still TBD, but with Nick Anderson, Barron Brown, Aaron Anderson, Bauer Sharp, Trades Green, Caden Durham. I have to take a breath. Caden Durham, Harlan Berry. There's so much talent around him. I think he's in line for a Heisman Trophy type of season, maybe not a winning season, but a Heisman finalist. I think he's in line to be – actually, I'm wondering when the SEC media days in July and all that stuff comes out, is he AP preseason All-American QB1?
Yeah, that's a serious question. I mean, who
it's him or Klubnik or Sellers, and when's the last time has LSU even ever had a preseason AP All-American? I mean, obviously Burrow and Daniels were postseason AP All-Americans, but I don't know if ever going into a season if LSU's ever had it. I don't know if that's a look up. Yeah,
that's true. Because the only one I can think of was Jamarcus Russell, but but also that same. Remember, you also had Brady Quinn there as well. Yeah, Brady Quinn. You had some other great college quarterbacks that year as well. All SEC is one thing, but in terms of, first of all, SEC preseason, that's one thing, but All-American, it's been a little while. But Greg McElroy, of course, the former Alabama quarterback, shared his thoughts about Garrett Nussmeier. We're going to play that for you guys right here. Barring ads, please don't show any ads. Oh, my God. Oh,
there we go. So look at this. Look away.
He had an amazing 2024 campaign, went for over 4,000 yards, 29-12 touchdown interception ratio, and 64% completion. It's, I think, kind of amazing that Garrett Nussmeier is still in many ways kind of flying under the radar. Like I feel like he's a guy that had such a great year last year, but people have pointed to some of the mistakes that were made, like the interception thrown against A&M. People have kind of focused on the negative. Well, I look at Nussmeier and I look at some of those interceptions. Yeah, he's a gunslinger. Like, he takes chances with the football. Like, sometimes, does it concern me how often he's willing to roll the dice and try to fit it in a small window? Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, he pulls it off more than most. And I think that he is in a really good position to go along with the weapons that they've now added. You already have Aaron Anderson, but Nick Anderson, I think you got some guys that can play on the perimeter. I like their personnel at tight end. I think I'm hopeful that LSU will take some of the pressure off Garrett Nussmeier this year, because they didn't run the ball hardly at all last year, partly because they didn't have amazing depth at running back. But I think that this is a great spot for Garrett Nussmeier to be in. Now, are there areas where I would like to see him improve? Of course. I don't want to see him be quite as aggressive. I think understanding what the situation requires would be somewhat helpful. I think understanding, hey, I can't make that throw there. I'll just check it down. Like, checking it down is not a sign of weakness. Like, you could just take a check down and live to play the next play and pick up 8 yards underneath, and now it's 2nd and 2. And the whole playbook is available to you at 2nd and 2, as opposed to driving it between 3 defenders, maybe pulling it off, but maybe also getting picked and returned to the house. So I'd like to see him clean that up a little bit. But the biggest thing I would like to see from Garrett Nussmeier this upcoming year is a willingness to take off and run. Last year, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I believe Garrett Nussmeier had about 15 scrambles last year. Like thereabouts, right around 15 scrambles. Wow. There are some quarterbacks that have 15 scrambles in one game.
Wow.
Nussmeier had that over the course of the entire season. He never wanted to really keep the defense honest with his legs. Now, he did it a couple times. One in particular against Ole Miss, where they needed it, and he took off, and he got what was a key third down conversion en route to the game-winning touchdown drive. So it's in there. He can do it. He's plenty athletic. He just didn't really show a real willingness to do it last year. So I would really like to see him grow in that area. But, man, I am really bullish on this young man. He's in year 5 at the program, second year as a starter, the unquestioned starter, obviously, at LSU, and one of the most talented quarterbacks in the entire SEC. So I think he's going to cause a lot of problems, assuming he can continue to grow and develop and continue to pull off those amazing throws and continue to hit teams downfield. But I think just a little bit better understanding of game management and willingness to take off and run would take him from a great player to an elite player. I don't think the gap's that wide, by the way. I think he's really close. Just a couple of things that could be tweaked just ever so slightly, and he'll be cooking with gas.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the video earlier. I had to share that with you guys, but he's exactly on point. Garrett Nussmeier, I'm surprised with you. 15 scrambles throughout the whole entire year.
Yeah.
Like LSU played 13 games last year. Like when I heard that, I didn't realize. I knew we didn't really run that much. 15 scrambles in one season.
Yeah, I remember I tweeted during the South Carolina game because, just remember how bad they were inside the 5-yard line on like third and shorts and got to have it. And I remember tweeting something to the extent of like, look, I get you don't want to like risk an injury and have him like scrambling needlessly, but we don't trust him enough to do the bush push. Like Caden Durham or Caleb Jackson can't push him from behind to get half a yard when you got to have it. I thought they were weirdly too cautious with them. I mean, it's a violent game, but I guess the alternative is Patrick Mahomes kind of messed up a knee a couple of years ago doing a QB sneak, and they don't really have him do it anymore. So maybe they were doing that, I guess, but sometimes it's football, man. You got to take the hit sometimes. And there are just so many games, the Florida game, the Ole Miss game, where there's green grass ahead of him and he just wouldn't take it. And no, he's never going to be Jaden Daniels. That's fine. But Joe Burrow isn't Jaden Daniels. Joe Burrow was willing to take some of those scrambles and get 6 or 7 yards to keep chains going. So if he can add that, look out. I'm also hoping, I think especially like the A&M game, it got so bad. He ended up throwing the ball like 50 times because there just was no run game, and they were so predictable, and A&M knew it. So A&M could just drop 8 back all the time because Nuss isn't going to run. And, you drop 8, everybody's double covered. So, yeah, you throw it 50 times, you're more likely to throw interceptions. That's just more chances. So if the run game can be more complementary, then I expect the interceptions to drop from 12 in 2024 to maybe, I don't know, if you can cap it somewhere like 9, if you can keep it in single digits, I think that's going to be a sign of really good team success. I think if LSU has, or if Nussmeier cracks into double digits or has like 12 or more interceptions, I'm expecting a disappointing season.
Yeah, I mean, oh, by the way, I just realized the Pelicans I'm not a Pelicans fan, but I realized the Pelicans got the number 7 pick. And I have a radio show, and I've been telling people all year that they're definitely going to have a top 4 pick. So I apologize for anybody that listens.
Second worst season ever, and your reward is the 7th pick in a stacked draft. Great job, guys.
It's not even their fault. I mean, ridiculous. By the way, they made drafts rigged. But anyway, going back, because Dallas got the number 1 pick, by the way. But anyway, going back to Garrett Nussmeier, like Garrett Nussmeier, Look, if LSU can run the ball effectively, and also Garrett Nussmeier can, like Greg McElroy said, can be a little bit safer with the ball, right? Like you don't have to take the deep shot downfield. If you could run and get a few yards, go for it. If the check down's there is open, get a 7-8 yards. Like find ways to get yards. So don't throw into triple covers. Last year against A&M, I think that's the most famous example of Garrett Nussmeier's, willingness to throw the ball down the field in dangerous situations when he doesn't really need to, was against A&M, where there was a little bit of an open field. He could have scrambled to got a few yards. It would have been second and 6, second and 5, whatever. But instead, he goes for a deep ball. He throws it in a dangerous area. He throws it right to an A&M defender, and that ended up changing the whole entire game because A&M put in Marshall Reed, and they scored the game-tying touchdown, and then it was over from there. LSU and A&M scored on every single one of his offensive possessions. It changed the whole game, and those type of plays can change our game-changing plays, and we saw that against A&M last year. And that A&M game, that one play, you can say not only changed the whole game, but changed the course of LSU's season. It really did.
Yeah, you're tied for first place in the West, and then just the bottom fell out. And like McElroy said in that clip, changing games, Nussmeier making that scramble against Ole Miss probably changed that game too. If Nuss takes a sack or throws it away, LSU probably loses the Ole Miss game. Yeah. So the proof is there if you take it. And again, I'm not saying to spam the scramble play, but if it's there, man, take it.
Yeah, no, literally. And I also I want to share this too because I actually found it. But 24/7 had Garrett Nussmeier as the let me share this with you guys. Had Garrett Nussmeier as the number 2 quarterback in the country behind Cade Klubnik, right? So the only guy you can make a case for that is better than Garrett Nussmeier. This moment in terms of production is Cade Klubnik, by the way. Both Texas boys, by the way. They're both from Texas. But this is what 24/7 had to say about Garrett Nussmeier. When he's on, Garrett Nussmeier has number 1 overall pick potential. And when he's off, the quarterback who once backed up Heisman winner and top NFL rookie Jane Daniels can be turnover prone. Consistency trumps all with Nussmeier, who was elite in the fourth quarter and wins over Ole Miss and South Carolina, but struggled during losses to Alabama and Texas A&M. He's a super talented passer with incredible arm strength and plays with extreme confidence. Brian Kelly and LSU quarterbacks coach Joe Sloan hope he's Heisman level in 2025, and the Tigers have done all they can to ensure the weaponry around him. And I also want to mention, like I said, Cade Klubnik is the number 1 quarterback in the country according to 24/7 Sports. Cade Klubnik was superb during the second go-around with Riley, calling the plays in 2024, throwing 17 more touchdown passes than he did the previous campaign, thanks to improvements made as a passer, with Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore back to headline a talented group of receivers for the Tigers. Klubnik could have his best season yet as a senior for the defending ACC champions. His performance through the air at Texas in the playoff really showed how far he's come from the pocket. Klubnik threw 3 or more touchdown passes in 9 different starts last season, which tied for most in college football with Cam Ward. And by the way, Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So he was in the elite company last year. And really, this game could be between 2 of the top quarterbacks, not only in the country, but those could be picks 1 and 2, or the number 1 and number 2 quarterback for next year's draft. And as we mentioned before, next year will be stacked in terms of quarterbacks. There'll be a lot more depth. So, teams will probably be more reliant on drafting quarterback next year compared to this year's draft.
Yeah, and speaking of that draft, and speaking of Clemson, I think it was Todd McShay had mocked Nussmeier number 1 overall.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But speaking of Clemson, a lot can change, but I think he had 6 Clemson players going in the first round. What I'm saying is this Clemson game ain't going to be easy.
No, we knew that going in. Actually, right now, I actually have LSU losing to Clemson right now. I really do.
I think I do too.
It's just like LSU did improve its roster. They have more talent, but dude, playing at Clemson at
Week
the
1.
other Death Valley is tough. It's
Week 1.
in week 1, yes, in week 1. It's extremely, extremely tough. Of course, LSU has talent, but some of those guys are playing with each other for the first time. Meanwhile, Clemson, all those guys, all their best players were there the previous season. And we have issues on the offensive line. Clemson's defensive line is really good. And not only that, they hired Tom Allen as a defensive coordinator, who's one of the best defensive-minded coaches in all of college football.
They hired the guy from the voice of Buzz Lightyear?
No, that's Tim Allen. I'm talking about Tom Allen. He was the head coach. He was the head coach at Indiana before what's his name took over. But he's a crazy guy too. But he's one of the best defensive minds in all college football. Like when he was at Indiana, they had some of the best defenses in the country. So he's a great defensive play caller. And going against a guy like Joe Sloan, who has questionable offensive play calling at times, ain't going to be easy. But overall, that's a very exciting match because you have two of the best quarterbacks not in college football, but you can see those guys going 1 and 2 in next year's NFL draft. And like I said, I think Gary Nussbauer might be the best quarterback in all college football, but Cade Klubnik has something to say, and I can't wait for that matchup on August 30th, Labor Day weekend. But Zach, any last thoughts before we wrap up tonight's show?
I was just wondering aloud, is there a line yet on that game? There's got to be a line somewhere, right?
There is somewhere. There is somewhere. I don't know if I feel like looking it up yet. We'll look it up another time.
I think I'd pick Clemson right now. I think I'd take Clemson. Don't come at us, but you know.
I think if you, that's a fair assessment. Clemson, they returned all their guys from last year. That's gonna be a tough matchup for LSU. Like if it was in Baton Rouge, I could make it. I will feel very uneasy about that game, but I might give LSU the edge because Brian Kelly's only lost one night game in Tiger Stadium. That was against Alabama last year. He's also lost 2 overall at Tiger Stadium, Tennessee in 2022, and of course Alabama last season. But Mike had a comment: could BK have another Heisman quarterback to go 7-5 again? He didn't go 7-5, but yes, he could have a disappointing year. It's fair. He could easily have a disappointing year. I mean, it happens all the time. You saw that's how it happens in college football. Anything can happen, right? I mean, Florida State literally went from an undefeated team at a perfect regular season of 13-0. If they were extended a playoff, if they had the playoff suspension in 2023, then Florida State would probably be a top 4 seed going to the playoff. And then the following year, they go 2-10.
2.
They only won 2 games.
2. This many.
That's how many games they won. They won 2. And really their 10 losses were, so Florida State had lost 4 games in 2022 and if you think about in the years 2022 and 2023, 2021 and 2023, Florida State's lost 10 games. That's the same amount they lost last season, by the way. So to put that in perspective, yes, they could easily have a disappointing year. But anyway, let's go wrap up today's show. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to LSU at the Voice of College Football Network. Help us grow so we can get back into the algorithm, guys. And then also, make sure to follow us. Our Twitter handles are right there at Sasha Grant, Zachary Junda. Make sure to follow us on social media to get all the latest updates in LSU sports. But in the meantime, you guys have a great rest of your week. And we'll be back on Monday. Deuces.